Lois joined us. Hello.
Good morning.
We're still getting settled here. Give us a few more minutes.
I'll warm up my coffee.
This is a smart thing.
You've been away.
A little bit, yeah,
Yeah.
just enough.
I'm thinking, I've got so many assignments, I keep trying to think of them all, and one of them is the acknowledgement thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I want to get, the library just posted theirs. So I just went through it and I was on the subcommittee to help with that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think we have a really good team to work on that
Yeah,
here for us here. Yep.
Well, I'm ready whenever you are, Laura.
Give me just 1 second.
There you are.
You need anything, Edna?
I was gonna go get it.
I will go get you one.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
All right. Well, this is more of attendance than I imagined, at least in person, because of the snow and everything. We had a mighty attendance this morning of, including David and me, 6 at 8 a.m. I mean, think about that. 6.
Everybody had something else they had to do first.
Well, right. That was called shoveling or sleeping,
Right.
something like that. And
Shoveling.
so this morning, Gretchen is with us, Gretchen Knauer, a member, a longtime member of St. Mark's, and she's going to talk about some of her fabulous trips to the Holy Land in Egypt. But what we've been doing is just going around so everybody gets a chance to see who's with us this morning. And why don't we start on Zoom? There's Laura Waterman.
Hello.
You want to say anything about yourself, Laura?
I'm Laura Waterman, and I am very, very happy to be here. And I know what all the pictures look like because I got a preview.
Good. Then Fuad Saba is with us.
Hi, I'm Fuad Saba. Some of you have met me, some of you have not. I'm a member of the congregation and also active in the Adult Formation Committee planning process.
Fuad grew up in Lebanon.
A long time ago.
Well, not that long.
You're assuming I grew up, George, but yeah.
And then there's Judy Johnson. Judy, you're on mute, but oh, there you go.
Good morning. I'm still growing up here in Glen Allen.
I like this theme. It's a good one. Hi, Lois. Lois Sheridan.
Good morning. I'm shoveled my way, or I got a new snow blower. I should snow blowed my way to get my newspaper this morning. I've been to Israel too, and I was there for 2 weeks in 2006, and I'm really anxious to hear what she has to say.
Thank you, Lois. And then there's a K. Who's the K screen?
Kim Reed.
Oh, hi, Kim. Hi.
Hey, good morning, Kim Reed, and still growing up like others in the group. And I'm going to have my video off just because I'm moving around, but I'm really interested, Gretchen, in what you have to say and show us this morning. So thanks for doing this, and it's nice to see y'all. Bye.
Thanks, Kim. And then in person, we've got Josh O'Shea here. Josh, you want to lean forward and wave?
Yep.
You want to say something about yourself?
I've wanted to go to the Holy Land, so there we go. Give the pointers.
And I'm George Smith, and I have not been to Israel or Palestine or Egypt. And maybe that will happen at some point after I've grown up. Edna?
I'm Edna Hetherington. I'm very local.
Gretchen, oh, let's go to David Volthouse.
Yep. Good morning. I'm David Bolthouse, and I have been to the Holy Land. Not in the occupied West Bank, just in the Israeli part of it.
And when was that when you were there?
This would have been 1995, I believe.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
been a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it was during a time when there was in fact peace, so we didn't have a whole lot of worries at all, which was really, really nice. We were there for about 2.5 weeks.
Do you comment on your status of how grown up you are?
I've got a lot of growing up.
Oh, okay. Ashley and Kevin.
I'm Kevin.
Ashley?
And yeah, I'm definitely still growing up. It's a daily exercise, but yeah, no, I've only been outside the country a couple of times and never as far away as the Holy Land, so this would be interesting.
I've only seen pictures of the Holy Lands.
Yeah.
Well, this was actually I've been on 4 pilgrimages. Egypt was the 3rd and Israel was the 4th. Can I take this off in here?
You can take it off. We'll keep our masks on, but
Thank
yeah,
you.
I think it makes it easier for
Yeah,
you to
a
speak.
whole lot. Okay, Laura, let's start. And I'm so old, I've quit growing.
Yep, there you go.
I'm gonna just help with the screen here. So keep going.
Okay, this is the Coptic Museum in Cairo. And what's interesting about it is that great big black thing in the middle is the women's window. And they were allowed to look out, but nobody could look in. And inside this museum were a lot of pieces of statues and busts. And a lot of them were from the 1st and 2nd century. And if I'm trying to remember, I was there in 2008, trying to remember if some of them were actually some of the apostles that had been sent out in that area. Next.
Sorry, because I uploaded these incorrectly. It's going to take just a little long. I can't just hit next on these. My apologies.
Can you enlarge that?
Yes, I can. Wrong way. There we go.
Yeah, right. Very enlarged.
You can see part of the pyramid. There you go.
There,
Yeah.
just to prove, and I actually climbed up to the burial chamber of the Great Pyramid at Giza. And it was really interesting because it was a passageway about this wide and part up, part down. There were boards that slanted and there were cross pieces at every 18 inches. And it was so low, we crab walked like this to get up and down. And it took about 10 or 15 minutes to get up there. And all that's left up there is a great big marble box, which of course is empty, but that was the burial chamber of the Greek of Cheops. Okay.
Joyce Fletcher has joined us. And so Gretchen, a question. So those pyramids that we saw there,
Oh, sorry.
how far away are they from Cairo?
Not very,
Like, are they within? Are they,
maybe 20 minutes, depending on traffic.
That's such a beautiful picture.
and so
Oh,
is
you're
one of those
breathtaking
the
there.
pyramid of? You said it is called Giza.
Yeah, is the name of the area.
Oh, and was one of those pyramids? You said you went into one of those
Yeah.
behind you. Which one?
Probably the biggest one.
Is that the one to your left?
I think it is.
And
And the others were pyramids he had built to his wife and daughters.
so are they, I mean, they're so amazing, just even this picture.
They're huge.
What were they larger than you expected? Are they, I mean, what was the
I
feeling?
went with
of
no
being there?
expectations, so everything was new and different for me. George, if you keep interrupting, I've got.
You know, Gretchen, I am gonna interrupt you because you know, what, you can't, if you just go through these things, bang, 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 we're gonna miss stuff. And,
No,
you know,
you're not.
Not gonna be able to get through all of it, I
All
promise.
right, next.
One of the really interesting views, George, is as you're driving outside Cairo towards the airport, and you look back, you can look back at the pyramids, you can see them beyond the skyline with the sun going down between them. Very red sunset. It's a very interesting view.
This is a long, we actually, after Giza, we got on a boat and sailed down the Nile to Luxor. And when you look at this, you see the kids playing in the river, you see others walking along the banks. You cannot tell if that's 2000 BC or 2000 AD. I mean, it's absolutely timeless of everything there that you look at.
Wow.
Next.
So that's the Nile there.
That is the Nile that we're on.
And that low, because does it still go up and down a lot, right?
No.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it floods and they rely on the floods to fertilize all the soil. And that's how they grow their crops. Okay, this is inside Karnak, which is at Luxor, which Luxor is built on what used to be Thebes. And you can see the people inside to give you a relation of how tall. Those pillars are 80 feet tall and the circumference is 33 feet around them. I mean, they are absolutely huge. When it was first discovered, the sand was probably, you see that on that second pillar on the left, there's kind of a dark mark. That's how much sand was in there when they first discovered it. Karnak is about 15,000 years old. Many pharaohs have built things in there to leave their mark. It covers 100 acres. So it's huge.
So those pillars there, how do we have any idea how old those are? 15,000, or you said that this area goes back, civilization. 15,000.
Well, and Karnak goes back because they started building there. You know, I mean, there's a statue of Tut in there. And how many years ago did he live? 2,000, 2,500 years. So it's been built on by these pharaohs all over the ages. Inside, all right, go next one.
It's amazing just thinking of how they would have built all those pillars and they're so huge.
And they're carved and they go up into, I think it's acanthus leaves at the top when you look at them. And so they're really beautiful.
Wow.
Can't quite see that one.
That's Tut.
Okay, the one on the left, you can't really see it, is the statue to Tut. He died in his early 20s. Tremendous inbreeding. He had a club foot, an elongated jaw, elongated skull. But the stuff he left behind, which most of it was in the old Egyptian Museum in Cairo, they have since built a new one and transferred all of that stuff. It was very hard reading things in the museum because it was typed on 3x5 cards. And you got all of these people trying to read what's there. And it's like, well, forget it. You can't even get close to it.
So it's interesting that King Tut is so famous and well known, and he died in his 20s.
Right.
So what is the reason he is so quad? We can hear your typing.
Sorry, I was writing a
You want to hear yourself. It sounds like a drum set.
3x5.
Well, because his tomb was one of the ones that had not been broken into. And it was discovered by Howard Carter and the 5th Lord Carnarvon, who actually lives, if anybody's seen Downton Abbey, that's Highclere Castle. And that's where the Carnarvons lived. And they had been there for many years, determined to find something and knew that they would. And because his tomb had not been broken into, they were able to get all these things. The box he was in, there was like boxes that are inside of boxes. Well, the main box was about the size of all four of these tables put together, and probably about almost as high as this museum. His chariot had poles from that wall probably to that wall. Those things were all in the Egyptian museum. Plus, of course, the mask that you see and all the other jewelry. Okay, next.
Was there suspicion about his death? Like, wasn't there some
Well,
intrigue?
no, I think
too?
he had, because
Okay.
he was so much inbreeding,
Yeah.
as with so many European royalty families, that they're trying to preserve their power. So they kept marrying nieces to uncles, et cetera, et cetera. And so you ended up with the Habsburg jaw, which is this huge protruding jaw, overly large tongue that I think it was Charles the second or third, barely could eat because everything was so misshapen. And this was the result of them trying to maintain their power. This is
That's beautiful.
this is the tomb of Ramses II,
Wow.
which was moved. It used to be farther south near Oswan, which is about 270 kilometers south of Ramses Temple. And Ramses is the only one who also built a temple to his queen Nefertari, which if the Ramses is here, her tomb would be over here in the thing.
Wait, so you said this was moved.
This was moved to build Oswan Dam.
When was it? Oh, so it's moved in the modern time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Right.
whenever Oswan was built, what was it, 20, 30 years ago?
Right.
If they're that
Right.
long.
Now,
Yeah,
when were you
The
here?
Aswan Dam was built in the 1960s, Gretchen, under Gamal Abdel Nasser. Yeah.
Well, I can remember some of the stuff, so it was in
Hard
my
to imagine being
lifetime.
able to move that.
Yeah.
I know.
Brick by brick, literally.
Oh,
They took it apart and
Oh.
moved it all.
Gotta take a picture first to make sure you're real.
yeah, right, yeah. They numbered them all, one,
It's
two.
like you don't want to lose the
Next.
cover of the puzzle box.
Yeah, yeah.
Next.
And did they move it for preservation?
Yes.
Or?
This is the Valley of the Kings, which is where all the royal tombs are. And of course, it's modernized in that they have roads that you could get in and out, and the tour buses, etc. This is where all of many of the tombs have been found. There's also the Valley of the Queens, which we did not go into. You go into these tombs, the hieroglyphics and the paintings inside, because it's dry and dark, have been preserved, and they are so incredible. You cannot believe the colors of them, the beauty of them. They're really, really amazing. Next.
Sorry. I swear the next set won't take as long to switch between.
Okay, this is Oswan
Okay.
Dam,
Oh.
which is about not quite 300 kilometers south of Ramses' tomb. If the dam provides about 60% of the power to Egypt, and if the dam shuts down and the power shuts down, within 6 hours, all of Egypt starts shutting down, which is how important this dam was, and the need to build it to supply the power to the people. Next.
And is it unreliable?
No, it's not unreliable.
Right,
It's incredibly necessary.
I know that they talk about its environmental impact a lot, but
Well, it was necessary. This is the opposite view from the dam. And to me, it just struck me like a Chinese painting, in that the way the colors of the hills behind faded out. Next.
so where is that taken from? Are you on a boat
No,
there?
no, we're actually standing at the,
Oh.
there's a road in
On the
front
shore.
of the water. On the other side, I think it's the Mediterranean. This is at one of the campsites we drove in. We drove into, after we were at Oswan, we were put on a plane another morning at 2 a.m. We had about 4 or 5 of those in a week.
Wow.
The little trucks in the back, you could get 6 to 8 people in, and they drove us into the desert. We flew up to Sharm el Sheikh, which is the point of the Sinai Peninsula. and then drove up into the desert. And this is how we camped. We were given a 2-inch foam mattress. Each person had brought their own sleeping bag. And that's what it was like. Next.
Looked like a piece is falling off.
Yeah.
These are the Bedouin
Mhm.
camel drivers. And they've all gathered and brought in the camels, ready for us to get on them and to go to our next campsite. And we rode, probably at least an hour, stopped at a place for lunch. All the cooking was done over a wood fire, a gas fire. They had propane tanks with them. And it was about this big, and every single meal we ate was cooked over that.
What kind of food was it?
Oh, amazing. It was so good. Boiled eggs in the morning, hard cooked, that were absolutely perfect. I mean, none of the green extra overcooking. We had stews. They would bake the bread, roll it out, put it upside down on top of a kettle to cook. And then they would be about this big. And then when they're done, they would tear them up into quarters, and that's how we ate the food. But you could smell it cooking all day long, and it was just incredible. I mean, some of the best food that I've had. Next.
And that lifestyle also probably hasn't changed for thousands of years.
The what?
Just that lifestyle, just.
No,
moving
Except they
not
didn't
at
have,
all.
except they didn't have propane.
Right, the propane part.
Tourist avenue.
This
Yeah,
is us getting mounted up on the camels.
Oh, you rode a camel?
Yeah.
Next.
Fantastic.
What's that like?
Yes.
That's
Wait.
cool.
There.
There we go.
Proves it.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, and you can't tell from the picture, but I have gloves on because when I'm number 2 came back from Philmont, which is a Boy Scout high adventure camp, he had so burned that he had burned, blistered, scabbed over. The tops of his hands were complete scabs. And so it was like, well, I'm not going to do that.
No.
And so I brought gloves along. The camel driver, what are those? And I said, the sun.
Okay.
Because I have no pigment in my skin and do nothing but burn. And so actually, I'm waving like
Yep.
Queen Elizabeth. I will tell you that riding a camel is torture. You have to have a good saddle. We did not have good saddles. So a lot of people were taking their mattresses, the 2-inch foam, putting it up top, trying to sit on that to make it easier. It didn't really help. By the time we were done, my poor tush was so sore.
Yeah.
Because you kind of have to sit back on your tailbone. And years ago, I broke my tailbone, and so not real comfortable. But that proves I did it.
How long did you ride on the camel?
It's about at least an hour or 2.
Oh, wow.
So the disposition of a camel is pretty
They can be
calm,
nasty. They can spit and bite and all the rest of
Stay
it.
away from their faces.
but
Yeah.
getting up onto there, they're okay. I mean,
Yeah.
And that's what they're trained to do. And you have one of the Bedouin helpers helping you. What I wanted to say is the place where we ended up was between 2 huge rock formations, probably 5 times the height of this room. In the rocks, you can see different colors, green and gold and red, and it's copper and iron and manganese, but it's in such small quantities, it isn't economically feasible to get it out. But when the sun hits it, you can see all these colors in the rocks. Really, really beautiful. The last camp we went to, where we stayed for 3 days, no tents. You know, we had our foam mattress and your own sleeping bag, and that's where we slept for 3 nights. At night, it was absolutely incredible. When you see pictures of the heavens with all the stars, because there's no light distracting the view, you could see every one of them, the Milky Way, all these formations. And everybody, it seemed, would wake up in the night and you could
Yeah.
see how much different constellations had moved.
Mhm.
And it was just absolutely incredible. In fact, you almost kind of wanted to wake up
Right.
just to look at it, because there was the whole panoply of the heavens. It was absolutely magnificent. And as I said, we stayed there for 3 days. Could smell the food cooking all day. It was these 2 pillars this way, and at this end was a huge, huge dune. Oh, probably about 3 times the height of this room, sand dune. That was kind of a windbreak. And there was a trip into the desert one morning, and I thought, no. And I'm glad I didn't go, because they ran out of water and they took longer than they thought. And it was like, I went up on kind of a rock shelf and I slept. And a lot of people did the same thing, because it really was getting tired. What was interesting staying there is we had a group of about 17 people, kind of a mixed group that we had women Lutheran pastors. We had the Roman Catholic chaplain to the Cleveland Clinic. We had retired Anglican priests. And so it was a real mixture of our group. One of our guides is named as Marcus Losak. This was my 3rd trip with him. And he's a priest, an Englishman who's a priest in the Church of Ireland. And he leads ecumenical pilgrimages. As a young man, he went into the desert. I'm not sure how long he stayed there, but then went through, he used to teach at St. George's College in Jerusalem. I don't know how many degrees this man has. Kind of looks like a shaggy bear because he's bearded and long hair. When we were in Chartres, there's this guy that goes around talking about the windows and makes the tours. He's been brought by the Art Institute. He looked at our group, oh, those hippies again.
Yeah.
You know, and actually we were there on pilgrimage, is what people do to go to the cathedral at Chartres. But this is kind of what he looks at. Anyway, this was kind of the mixed group we were with. And on, I think it was a Sunday morning, we gathered in a circle and celebrated communion. And each of us passed the host and the chalice to the person next to them. One of the Anglican priests did a lot of research, I'm not sure, no, he wasn't a professor, but really did a lot of his research into the original meaning of words. And when he got to the Lord's Prayer, he said, this is not translated very well at all. We say, lead us not into temptation, which is the lousiest theology you can come up with. And so he had it translated, do not allow us to fall into temptation, which is a whole different meaning. That was a huge, huge piece when we got the handouts from him and really looked at that and the
The
difference.
Pope has commented on that.
Right,
too,
yeah,
if you know
I
that.
know the
Right.
Pope is wanting to change.
Right.
Well, I cannot say that anymore, so I now say, save us from the time of trial, which is far closer to the original meaning. Oh, we missed the picture of St. Catherine's Monastery.
Yeah, we didn't, I just didn't realize you wanted me to go on. I'm sorry. Here it is. Sorry.
Perfect.
Okay, there.
Fantastic.
Wow.
St. Catherine's Monastery has been there about 1,500 years. The desert used to be filled. This is in the Sinai, and it's next to the mountain where Moses was thought to have received the tablets. Because the monastery always fed the Bedouin, and those walls along the side are probably 20 to 30 feet tall. And they used to bring food up and down with buckets over the edges of the walls. Because the monastery always fed the Bedouin, they did not attack it. The library that they have is probably second to the Vatican's. The Vatican's has the money to rebind all these old volumes. St. Catherine's doesn't. So as you're standing in there, you can see all these volumes tied together with shoelaces and strings and the rest of it. But the quality of the work they have, things in the original Latin, Hebrew, Greek, some I think, I'm not sure if they're in Aramaic or not, but there were 6 different theses being written when I was there, using their library as original sources. So there used to be a show on TV called Walking the Bible with Bruce Feiler, and he had stopped at St. Catherine's and talked to the librarian, whose father Justin was actually from Texas. And so when this was mentioned on the TV show, Texas the university perked their ears up and sent them a stand that's kind of like this, that can hold the books without breaking their bindings. And so they're using that, and they're in the process of trying to digitize what's in that library. I mean, it's an incredibly priceless resource. There is a document in the library with the hand of Saladin, and his hand was about this big. I have size 7 small hands. His hands were about this big, but there's a handprint on there. Death to anybody who assaults this monastery. So it was really under their protection and care.
So how many people are associated, like living there and working?
Not
there?
as
Do you know?
as many as there used to be. There might be maybe 15. We can't really tell because we didn't see them all. Father Justin was there.
I mean, it looks like it could accommodate
Probably 40.
50 or something like that. But,
Yeah, it's quite a large place. The church, I'm watching my time. It's their museum is known for their for the icons. They have some incredible icons in there. One of them is the
Is that
Pontefract.
inside
That's in the
monastery?
monastery?
Yes, that's the
Oh,
church. Can you
beautiful.
enlarge that?
Kind of spaces.
The iconostasis, right.
It's gorgeous.
The one of the Pontefract is about this wide, and it's about this tall, and one eye is blue and one eye is brown. And when you walk from left to right, the eyes track and follow you. It's just incredible. This is also a place where they have a bush that they are quite sure was the burning bush, because it is the only one like it in the whole Sinai. They have done some dating on the wood from it, and it's way over 2,000 years old. And so they kind of, they think it's the burning bush.
How is it stored?
It's growing.
Oh,
It's growing. It's not stored. It's right outside the church.
they don't like have anything around it? Like you can just go
But
up
this
to
is
it and, like,
inside the
flip?
monastery walls.
Okay.
I mean, all of this stuff is within the walls.
Yeah.
The church, can you move that a bit to the left and enlarge a little?
I thought it was showing. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Yep.
Oops.
It
yeah,
is
we
showing.
can see it. She wants it to be even larger.
If we can enlarge the.
Oh, I see what you're saying. My bad. I'm sorry. Hold on.
It's okay.
So you want to see the picture of the church?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. My bad.
You see the chandeliers?
Yeah.
There are about 5 of those in there. And at Easter time, those are only lit by candles,
Oh, wow.
not electricity at all. And so at Easter time, they light all 5 of those chandeliers. And according to Dr. R, who was one of our guides, is a physician who's a desert rat, and a Coptic Christian. He lives partly in Cairo and partially at Nuweiba, which is along the Red Sea. We stopped at Nuweiba. It's a resort area. You look across the water and that's Jordan right on the other side. But he owns this travel company, Abanud Travel. But he always goes to St. Catherine's at Easter time. Very well known there and respected, etc. But inside there are icons all along the walls, plus up in the monastery.
Do they draw icons there?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
These are just ones from,
Right.
I
I
mean,
was gonna
this,
say, you're right.
this has been there, 1,500 years. So
They probably got all the ones. they need then.
Napoleon was there,
Sure.
Francis the
They have
First
enough. They don't need more.
right.
of France
Yeah.
sent a chalice like this. Some
Uh,
of the things they have, have been collected over centuries. I forgot to mention, at Karnak, there is a one obelisk. There used to be 2. Napoleon picked up the other one, and that's now standing
Yep.
in the Place de la Concorde
Right.
in Paris.
Mhm.
People that have stolen from there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, that's all the British Museum, right?
beautiful.
Yeah.
right, okay,
This will
Jerusalem.
go faster. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm watching time
Oh,
too.
this is beautiful.
This is a view of Jerusalem, actually from the Herod's Citadel, which is right across the street from Christ Church, Jerusalem, which is the oldest Protestant church in the whole Middle East. You can see the dome. The tile work on that mosque is absolutely incredible. Next.
I say it'll go faster. There we go.
Okay, this is inside the Citadel. You can see the different cells, all the things that were around there. What's interesting, is there's some glass sculptures inside there from Dale Chihuly, the glass master. When you walk in the door, there's this huge gold with a spirally things coming down to it. It's absolutely amazing. Just you walk in there and see that. There's also blades of grass in there. Next. This is the Wailing Wall, of course. Inside every tiny little crack are pieces of paper that people write out their prayers and stick them into the cracks along the wall. Next.
And you were in the women's section? Is that what that was? Or how
No,
did
that
work
was
for you?
everybody.
Okay.
There were men and women. When I were there, there was a class, and so there was also men, or mostly men, but other times they mix it up.
Okay.
Okay, this is one part of the top of Temple Mount. I didn't look up how many acres it covers, but this is a whole group of men who are there. They study up there. To the far right side is a mosque. To the far left side, as you keep going next, is the Dome of the Rock up there. This is way at the other end. Probably, I can't tell you in distance, but a long way, probably
2 football fields?
from Maine almost to Park is the top of the size of the top of Temple Mount. What's really interesting is that the whole top is Islam, but underneath it is Jewish. And there were classes going on for men. There were classes going on for women. There was archaeological excavation going on. Top is Islam, which has been since 600s, but underneath it is most definitely still Jewish. When you talk about the size of the stones, I stood one, and it was next to that sliding door till probably about this lamp long, floor to the top of the underneath the clock, high, and who knows how thick. But when you talk about the size of the stones of the temple, they're absolutely humongous. And we got down obviously inside the temple, which was really interesting. You'd find stairways, and underneath would be a purification pool. All over the place, you would find the pools.
So
I-
those arches there that we're seeing, do we know like the dating of that? Do you have any idea?
No, it's just the other end of the Temple Mount. But I wanted most people see the Islamic side. I wanted to show, some of it, the other end.
I'm guessing, I don't know, what do you think, David? I'm guessing that might be like medieval Christian build after the conquest.
And it has a Romanesque
Yeah, it does.
look to it.
Well,
Yeah.
because the Romans were involved in there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, next. Okay, this
Oh,
is
wow.
the dome of the mosque up there. The tile work around it was absolutely gorgeous. I have pictures of it, but I have to cut down what I could bring. But to be up there and to see the size of it, I mean, was really, really incredible. You could still see, you know, arches left over. It's such a mixture of all three religions kind of heaped and pressed into this one place. Okay,
When
next.
was that built? You
The
know?
temple was
Okay.
destroyed in 70 AD and it was rebuilt. I'm
Well, it
not
hasn't been
sure.
rebuilt.
No, the temple hasn't.
Yeah.
The
dome of the
the
mosque.
dome was
mosque.
built
Yeah.
later, but the temple
Right.
hasn't been rebuilt.
No, well.
No,
Actually,
the
it's
temple
still
was not
there
rebuilt.
because what you see is as
Underground.
the wall, the Wailing Wall is just this minute little part of the length of the whole temple. We
Oh, I
walked
never
around
knew
part
that.
of it. There are gates that were closed up that used to people were, you know, the gate of the whatever, and they would go up into the temple. So what's there is really, really old. I mean, it goes back.
Gretchen, the first temple was destroyed during the Babylonian context. After the return from Babylonia, the second temple was built. But after the Roman conquests in 70 and 130 AD, the temple was destroyed again and never rebuilt.
But the mosque that's
But the
there,
mosque.
when was that built as well?
That's what I wondered.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
the
well,
seven.
the Romans tore down the temple, but when was it that Islam conquered Jerusalem?
It would have been in the late
Like the
600s.
1500s or?
Oh no, late 600s.
600s,
Oh,
because
early.
the mosque that's
Oh,
built
cool,
there
I-
is supposedly the spot from which the prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven.
Mhm.
So, and that was in 600. So not that long afterward that was built.
Mhm.
Okay, next. We missed one in there. Okay, that's the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. Helena's, Constantine's mother, Helena, went to Israel in about sometime in the 300s.
George was saying
And
that.
she decided where all these places were, where things involved in the life of Christ had taken place. And so she kind of determined Church of the Nativity, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, et cetera, et cetera. So this was Helena's viewpoint.
Mhm.
So the temple, the Church of the Nativity is really old. The pillars inside are multicolored because they're frescoes from the time of the Crusades. It goes back that far. One door you could see the original was like this, but there's now the door like this. That used to be the doorway where the horses would go through, and to keep the horses out, they narrowed it and shortened the door. Okay, next. This is the part of the floor, what it looked like at the time of Helena. And it's not much bigger. It's not as long as these tables are. So they've excavated part of it just to show what this floor looked like, which really, really lovely. Okay, next. The church is actually quite large. It has there's part of an area that's a Coptic church. I'm messing it up. Anyway, behind this church, kind of the thing with all the hanging lamps, you go around the side and you go down several steps. And you end up down into this little cave. Christ was not born in a manger in a stable. He was born in a cave on the hillside. And that spot with the silver stars is supposedly the spot where Christ was born. And there's a bit of an altar above it. Okay, next.
So that's is that clear? Is there, can you see anything under the star?
No,
Okay.
no. This is also, that was kind of here And this scene was kind of over to the side that they've recreated, possibly, you know, quote, the manger scene. But this is all in this cave inside this church. But that's supposedly where Christ was born. Okay, this is the beginning of the Jordan. This is at Tel Dan. Tel in Hebrew means hill. And so this is the hill of Dam. And there are about 100 streams that come together to form the beginning of the Jordan River. And there it was rushing rapids. When we first got to Jerusalem, we're driving through areas and somebody would say, oh, that's the Jordan. And it would be this muddy little, not even a stream this wide with maybe 2 or 3 inches of water in it. That's what most of the Jordan River looked like. But this is the beginning of it, and was a rushing rapids. So people were filling their bottles of water to bring back parts of the Jordan for baptisms. Okay, next. This is what as we're actually getting right across from Jordan. And at this point, this is about where the first kibbutz was, which is no longer an active kibbutz. We, when we were coming, and we were a group of about 17, the caretaker of that kibbutz had to crawl across the river to the Jordan watchtowers and say, I'm coming in with 17 people, they are all okay. This is the type of security that there is. Every place I've traveled, I've put a lock on my suitcase, TSA approved. Only place it was ever removed was in the airport in Belgium, where it was the layover, that the Israelis came through and took the lock off my suitcase. I put a lock on it so that people at O'Hare don't go through my dirty clothes. But that was the Jordan there. Okay, next. This was a tree at this kibbutz. Can you enlarge that even more?
I can try. You know, on this one, I'm sorry, I can't.
Well, that's pretty good. Yeah. This tree, which was huge, was covered with these flowers. They looked kind of like lilies. I took the picture because I had never seen a tree like this at all. I mean, it was, and I don't know the name of it. I don't know what kind it is, but it was just so amazing to see the whole crown of this tree covered in flowers like this. It was really, really beautiful. Okay, next.
Looks like a magnolia.
No, nope, not a magnolia. Okay, also at the same place, this is looking in the opposite way of the first picture of the Jordan. These are rail cars left from World War I. They were British, of course, the British and their great colonialization of everything. What's interesting is there is a bridge there, and the bridge is basalt. There were volcanoes in Israel 12,000 years ago. And a lot of places we went, if we were going like to a real old synagogue, the whole thing would be built about, and not much big, not even the size of this room, built out of basalt. And so all these railroad bridges were basalt, which was really interesting to see. But I just see this still from World War I sitting there was like, you know, you could clean up after yourselves.
Or somebody use it for scrap metal.
Well, clean them up. What's interesting is, and I couldn't show all the pictures that I had. I mean, it took Laura and I at least 3 hours to go through all of them to narrow it down to this. There's tremendous amounts of agriculture in Israel. It's a part of their economy. We went into the desert in Qumran, where the caves were, saw the cave from a distance of where the Dead Sea Scrolls were come. There's lots of wildlife, little deer about this big running around all over the place. It stopped at the Dead Sea, which is a real popular site because the mud is supposed to have healing powers. And so people go there and get wet. You can't sink in the Dead Sea because the salt content is so high. It's kind of roped off as far out, you know, they want people to go, but people are standing there just black with the mud that they've spread on themselves, that this is supposed to have healing qualities. So that was kind of interesting to see. Next. Okay, this is the top of Masada. One end of it, it kind of like a prow shape, Herod had built. There's a 3-level dwelling that was beyond resplendent for the time. There's lots of archaeology going on up there. The top of it, I don't know how many acres it is. There are some brick walls, mud walls still standing. But I couldn't bring all the pictures of Masada, but just to show this one, you get up there by a cable car, which takes about 15 minutes to get up to the top of it. When you're up there, and there were the number of people was almost 1,000 men, women, and children that the Romans had surrounded Masada and trying to drive them out. And on opposite of that picture was one of the edges, and you could look down over the edge and see where the Roman camp was. You could still see the outlines of it, that there was something, I don't know how many thousands of Roman soldiers there had made camp. And the only reason they were able to attack Masada because there was this natural formation, or a way the earth was packed that was like a ramp that went from quite a distance down all the way up to the Masada. And that's how the Romans were able to get up there.
So was it did Herod build it as a military fort or as a
No,
palace?
it was his private residences
Okay.
that had one room, had big blocks like this that people could walk on, and it was water, the floor was all water heated, so that was his steam room that you could walk through there.
Hey, Steve.
Oh, Laura, you're on. We can hear you, Laura.
But that was probably that end from where this picture was taken.
Is that the Dead Sea in the background, or
No,
what's
that's
that water?
That might just be.
It might have, I'm not sure if that's Galilee or the Dead Sea.
Okay.
The Galilee is actually 5 miles wide and about 13 miles long, and it's just plain as a big lake.
Yeah.
It's not a sea.
Right.
But lots of touristy spots along it for people to stay. One end of it was the church that's built over what they thought was the Sermon on the Mount that we went through. It's a beautiful church. Another end, we went out onto it at dusk, and we could see all the lights coming on, and what was Tiberias, which is on that end of the sea. Okay, next. I threw this in because when you're reading parts of the Bible, you'll come across the phrase, the Plains of Megiddo. This is Megiddo. It was the Howard Johnsons of its day, 7,000 years ago. That was the way station for people coming from the Tigris-Euphrates Valley all the way up through Damascus. And so that was the way station where they could change horses, refresh, get food, etc. So I had to throw, that's how they mark Megiddo, is with this wrought iron of the horses. Okay. Next. This is a statue of Peter. I'm trying to remember, I think it's along the Sea of Galilee. Next. And this is the first church that he built. It was a church in the round. Very famous spot, but I thought that would be interesting to see. That was Peter's first church that he began, organized, kept going until he moved on. Okay.
Don't really hear anything about Peter starting a church. So
Well,
that's interesting.
there it is. And it's an area along with many old synagogues, etc. But then here is this round church, what's left of it.
This looks like a pen for animals, right? I mean, it's
Well,
like but it's
Not
just-
very big,
Yeah.
maybe circular in this room, maybe a little bigger. Again, you can see the dark bricks. That's the basalt, which you find all over. Okay, last one. This is sunset on the Mediterranean at Caesarea. Caesarea was, I'll get into this. You could see the hippodrome and what was left of the ovals. You could see some of the buildings in the water closer. You could see what was left of the foundations of structures. So you really have this sense of how old it is. There was one section of a wall that was built by the Crusaders as they went through. But I just thought this was a lovely sight at the end of the day at Caesarea.
Beautiful.
And I'm done.
Wow.
You're done. You made it.
I made it in time.
That's
Congratulations.
wonderful.
If anybody ever wants to see more, Laura can tell you how many more there are, particularly
Oh, it's amazing.
of Israel, that I just, we had to break it down.
Yeah.
How long was your trip?
It was about 10 days. And
You
it was,
saw a lot in 10 days.
oh, well, we literally stayed at Christ Church, Jerusalem. The rector there is an Italian-American born in the Panama Zone, grew up in Florida, and always felt this call to Israel. And so he's been there probably 35, 40 years. Eventually was priested. So he went through school at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Every place we went, everybody knew David. His name is David Pelagi. Their mission is to the Hebrews in Jerusalem, bringing Christ to the Hebrews. And so even on the altar, there's Hebrew lettering. And when we were there, they were celebrating Sukkoth, the Feast of the Harvest. And so there was a structure with harvest things on it inside the church. An interesting man. I don't think he's really connected that much with the Diocese of Jerusalem. He kind of does his own thing. But when he leads a tour, I mean, what he knows, it was incredible. Every place we'd go, it would be, this is what Jesus taught here. And he'd take his Bible, and this is where it came from. And he would relate everything that Jesus taught back to the Hebrew scriptures, which was some of the best teaching I've seen and had, because it really tied the both together. And I really wish, when we do a lesson from the Hebrew scriptures, we would say, or anything from the Christian Gospels. And
That's for another adult formation. Goodbye, people on Zoom. I know we have to close out and then reopen for the 10:30. But anyway, join me in thanking Gretchen for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen. It was wonderful.
Wonderful.